Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Access Blockbusters Pod. It has been a while, guys. Welcome back to the Access Blockbusters Pod. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for clicking on this video or clicking on this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, wherever you are listening from. It has been a while, but I'm so glad to be back talking with you guys. Thank you so much for your continued support on the YouTube channel. And thank you guys so much for listening. It really does mean a lot as we wrap up 2022. Crazy to think 2022 is done and we head into 2023. It's going to be another exciting year of hopefully not too much heartbreak in terms of movies and television, and just a lot of excitement going forward. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are as well. For those of you who may not know, it may not seem like I have been away for a while, but and that's because I've been posting the videos of Star Wars Reexamined. So we're done with the prequel trilogy. We're done with the the between film, Solo: A Star Wars Story and Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. I hope you guys have been enjoying that series so far. It's been really fun for me to see a response, and also just to share my thoughts on the Star Wars films. It's been a little bit of a breath of fresh air, I guess, as we as there are a lot of other things going on right now. And obviously we're heading into 2023, which is very exciting, but I wanted to record a podcast and really just share my thoughts on some things, share my thoughts, catch up with you guys a little bit on what I thought about some of the movies that have come out over the past few months or the past few weeks, and then also look ahead to 2023. And so that's really what this episode of the podcast is going to be. I'm going to be reviewing, more like sharing my thoughts on 3 films that I've seen fairly recently. I know there's been a lot of content that has come out over the last little bit that I just unfortunately was not able to comment on or really review. I started to talk about She-Hulk a little bit, and I unfortunately I'll talk a little bit about it later, as you'll see as I reveal what the segments are going to be for this episode. But I reviewed the first few episodes. I'm not going to be able to review the rest of the season. It's just, I want to take some time to talk about some other projects. Andor, I loved. I really enjoyed. I really quite enjoyed. It's not going to be a series that I rewatch, every year or periodically. It's not that kind of love of the show, but it's just such a well-made show, in my opinion, that, I just really commend it for what it was doing, and enjoyed it quite a lot. Not every episode as much as others, but there were really great things in every episode. So that was a mini review of Andor, but I'm not going to talk about it as in depth, and things like that. But in today's episode, as we wrap up 2022 and head into 2023, I'm going to be reviewing 3 films, just discussing my thoughts on them in various ways. And then we're going to be doing 2 rankings that I feel like will be a nice bridge into the new year. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for, again, supporting the channel. It really means a lot. We are almost at 900 subscribers. That is crazy. I said one of the main goals that I had when starting out this YouTube channel back in 2020, less than 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, was 1,000 subscribers. And I didn't have any idea how long that would take. I really just didn't. I started out the channel with the hopes that someday I'd be able to hit 1,000 subscribers, and it's all thanks to you guys that we're getting close. We're getting close. And so if you haven't subscribed to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, please, it would mean a lot if you could do so. Again, we are very close to 900 subscribers, and we're heading towards that 1,000 mark. I'm hoping to hit that by 2023. In 2023, that would really mean a lot to me. So thank you guys again for your continued support. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, comment down below, and then also if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, please make sure to leave a review and let me know what you think about the podcast. With all that being said, let's start talking about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to be talking about 3 films, and then we're going to be doing 2 rankings. Very simple, very quick, very relaxed, very laid back, and then we'll be wrapping it up for the year. So without further ado, let's start talking about the 3 films. So the 3 films I want to talk about today: Black Panther: Wakanda Forever obviously has come out. It's been out for about a month and a half, almost 2 months. So I know it's a little old, and I'll be doing more of a spoiler review for that film. I won't be going on spoiler. I'm sure most of you guys have seen it by now, but I just wanted to give some of my thoughts on the film. So we'll be doing a spoiler review of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and then we'll do a non-spoiler review of Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, because I feel like I feel like that's a film where if you're gonna see it, then you've already seen it, and if you're not gonna see it, then maybe you need some convincing. And so I want to do sort of a non-spoiler review of Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, just so that if you haven't seen the film, I'd encourage you to see it without really giving away, what the central conceit of that story is, because again, I think that that's really the fun of a movie like that, a mystery, a whodunit mystery like Glass Onion. So I'll do a non-spoiler review of Glass Onion, Knives Out Mystery, and then finally, I just saw Avatar: The Way of Water, and I'll be doing a non-spoiler and spoiler review of that. So you can look forward to all three of those before we get into our rankings. All right, guys, let's talk about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So by now, I'm sure that you have seen the film. If you're watching this video, I'm sure that you've seen the film. It has been out for a little bit now, and I just wanted to give some of my quick thoughts on the movie as we head into Phase 5 of the MCU. So, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, obviously, you guys know, with the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman, there was a lot of, discussion about what this film was going to look like. And obviously, there were many different avenues that they could have taken. But, just jumping ahead basically right to the conclusion, Shuri really was the focus of this film. Now, it's an interesting choice, because on the one hand, I think that Letitia Wright gives just an incredible performance in the film. But it's hard, right? Because this entire film is dealing with the loss of Chadwick Boseman. And it's hard to have a character step up the way that the character of Shuri was meant to be, stepping into that lead role while also feeling that vast absence of Chadwick Boseman in the film at the same time. It's really a difficult thing. And I'm not entirely sure. I think that I think the film did about as good of a job as it could to convince me that Shuri and Letitia Wright, and again, this has nothing to do with the character of Shuri or anything like that. It's just more to do with the absence of Chadwick Boseman. It could have been any other character, M'Baku, it could have been Nakia. The film had to really convince me that the mantle could be passed on to any other character, with the absence of Chadwick Boseman. Because for those of you who've been watching the channel, I was one of the people who said, maybe they should have recast Chadwick Boseman. I thought that was the right decision. But I also respected Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler for not doing so, because they felt that was right. And it turns out that I think that they made the best movie they possibly could have, given the circumstances and given their decisions. So I'm not going to fault them for that at all. I think that Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is really a beautiful movie about grief and tragedy. And really how to deal with that. But going back to the point of the new Black Panther, I think that, given the fact that Chadwick Boseman or T'Challa are not in this movie, I think that the film really had to convince you, or at least convince me, that whoever is going to take the mantle, it felt appropriate. And I think that for everything, there are moments where I kind of feel like you just feel the weight of Chadwick Boseman's loss too heavily, that it just doesn't feel like Shuri is the new Black Panther. Again, nothing to do with the character, just with Chadwick Boseman and everything that happened. But again, I also think that given Letitia Wright's powerful performance, and also just the circumstances and just the way that the movie writes the character of her dealing with that, just inner anger and hatred towards the world. She wants to watch the world burn, and then moving to this place of just peace at the end of the film is really a beautiful thing. And her sparing Namor's life at the end of the film as well, I think that was really well done. So again, just to start out with here, talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, I'm really glad that the film took a chance to not recast Chadwick Boseman and then put Letitia Wright and Shuri, who was, let's be honest, a side character for the past few films of the MCU, and give her the chance to really shine. And I'm looking forward to seeing her again. I still think that I will feel the absence of Chadwick Boseman whenever she shows up, but I think that she will step into her own, and she already has. I think she already has. Now, obviously, you can't talk about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever without talking about Angela Bassett. And Angela Bassett, again, she gave a performance for the ages in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I think that her death was super impactful, but also, basically every line of dialogue that she had in the movie, you could tell it was being spoken from just this deep, resonant place, within Angela Bassett. And I think that, obviously, the speech that she gives in the UN, the speech that she gives to Okoye in the throne room, just really highlight what a talented and high caliber actress that Angela Bassett is. So It would be remiss if I didn't talk about how great Angela Bassett is. And then the rest of the cast, obviously, Winston Duke doesn't get a lot to do, but he's great again as M'Baku. Okoye Denai Greer is great. Michaela Cole, I believe, is one of the Dora Milaje. She's pretty good as well. Florence, I'm freezing on the actress's last name, but also great. And then obviously Riri Williams, Dominic Thorne. I thought that the inclusion of Ironheart in this film was interesting. I think that I wasn't expecting her to be as integral in the story as she was. It is a little interesting that the fact that the only person to make a vibranium tracker is Riri Williams. Like, it's establishing that she's a genius, but it's kind of a stretch because, I mean, again, we're not starting out with an Ironheart film. We're not starting out with the Ironheart series, so we don't quite have a grasp of who this character is, versus Iron Man had the entire film to establish that Tony Stark was, he was a genius, and he got out of the cave like that and all that kind of stuff. So just to start out the film and say, oh, there's this kid who, built a vibranium detector is a little bit of a stretch, but you kind of have to go with it. And again, just her flying around in an Iron Man suit at the end of the film, again, you just kind of have to go with it. And that's okay. Martin Freeman and Julia Louis-Dreyfus are probably their characters in their story. While I understand their place in talking about how the world views Wakanda and vibranium, and especially the United States, I found that their storyline was pretty superfluous. I think that you could have done without a lot of it. And that's no fault of Martin Freeman or Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think that I'm enjoying the character of Val more and more. I'm interested to see what she's going to do in future films like Captain America New World Order if she's in it, or obviously the Thunderbolts. But again, it just kind of felt like it was taking time away from the main brunt of the plot. And obviously the main brunt of the plot is Namor and Wakanda and Shuri. And obviously we have to talk about Tenoch Huerta, who plays Namor. Just an incredible job. I think that once again, Ryan Coogler understands that villains really aren't villains unless you aren't good villains, at least unless you understand them. And I think that in trying to humanize Namor in that way and trying to show the backstory of the colonization of his people and showing how he's trying to protect Talokan from the outside world was really just a great angle to take with that character. So I'm very impressed with what he was able to do with the character of Namor. As far as the story goes, I think that the story is relatively strong. I think that, again, you have this through line of Shuri dealing with her grief and dealing with her anger as she tries to grapple with this new character Namor and how he has to protect his people. I do think that the third act kind of sputters a little bit at the end. I think that the fact that they're just kind of fighting on this boat and then there's this side battle on the beach, it feels like that was sort of more of a mid-movie, like second act kind of fight. And then there was going to be, I'm not saying in terms of spectacle that there had to be something bigger, but something more impactful and more emotional. But again, I've seen the film 2 times now. And it every time I see the film, you get to the third act and you kind of go, yeah, okay. But it doesn't negate from really the rest of the movie. It doesn't negate from whatever has come before it. So again, I think that the central conflict of Talokan and Wakanda is much stronger, and I think I'm very excited to see where that goes from there as well. And yeah, I mean, I think that Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I think I still like the first Black Panther more. But again, I think that given the circumstances of this film and given what this film had to do, it just was truly incredible to watch. The first 5 minutes of the movie nearly broke me. And when the silent Marvel logo comes up, it was heartbreaking. It truly was heartbreaking. There are moments in the film where you just, like when Queen Ramonda dies and obviously the beginning and the end just hit emotional levels that no other MCU movie really has. Not even Endgame, not even Infinity War. And I was very impressed by that. I really, really was. So I'm grateful that Ryan Coogler took that swing. Especially, he could have just walked away from the project and said, "I'm done," which would have been respectable in its own right, I think, given what had happened. But I'm really glad that he took the time to channel his grief into an art form that we all got to watch. So I was very, very happy that Wakanda Forever was really elevated more above a film's, previous MCU films in terms of just the emotional weight and heaviness that it hit. And especially in a year where we got Doctor Strange 2, which was just a cheesy, kind of goofy, kind of B movie in a sense. And then we got Thor: Love and Thunder, a film that I like less and less the more I think about it. So yeah, really, really glad we ended the year strong with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Really, really excited for the future of Wakanda. I think it'll have a very important part to play in the MCU, but also just glad that the film itself was really strong as well. All right, guys, let's talk about Glass Onion now, a Knives Out mystery. So, Glass Onion, or Knives Out, I should say, was one of my favorite, if not my single favorite movie of 2019. It was a film that took me by surprise, and perhaps I shouldn't have been that surprised because Rian Johnson, controversial. I like The Last Jedi. I think he did a great job with it. He's a great director. He's a great writer. It obviously has a great cast: Daniel Craig, Ana de Armas, Chris Evans, Michael Shannon, and Jamie Lee Curtis, all that, all those people in the film. And so maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but again, the film really blew me away with just how well it was able to pull off that murder mystery, kind of whodunit, and really do it effectively. It's hard to do, especially when I'm not going to say that there's a formula, but it's there's a way in which you kind of understand. Okay, it's. You're going through the mystery, you're identifying suspects, and then you kind of figure it out, or maybe you don't figure it out because it's right under your nose, that kind of thing. But I loved how original Knives Out was because it really told you exactly what happened about halfway through. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you haven't seen Knives Out yet, but you should. But it told you basically what happened in the middle of the film, and then asked you to follow it along in a journey for the rest of the movie as it really unraveled the rest of the layers, no pun intended, Glass Onion. And I thought that was just so clever and so ingenious of it to do. So when it was announced that Glass Onion was going to be made, and that Knives Out 2 was going to happen, and that it was going to be Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig's detective character, and a new cast, and that was going to be the formula for Knives Out 2, Knives Out 3, and all the Knives Out films after that, I was just so happy. I think that this is a franchise that can go for as long as Rian Johnson is able to, and as long as Daniel Craig is able to as well, and I would be more than happy. So again, I went into Glass Onion knowing next to nothing. I barely knew the cast. I knew vaguely Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, maybe Dave Bautista, but again, Catherine Hahn, but I knew next to nothing, and that's why if you're watching this review and you haven't seen Glass Onion, which I'm going to assume a decent portion of you haven't, it's on Netflix right now, so if you have Netflix, go out and see it. You don't even have to go out, just stay in and see it. But I'm going to assume that, a good, decent portion of you guys haven't seen Glass Onion. And so that's why I'm going to keep it non-spoiler as I talk about the film. And I'm going to reveal as little as possible. So Glass Onion, what I can say is that Benoit Blanc is back, Daniel Craig, because that's the whole point of the series, is that you have Benoit Blanc on a new adventure, and there's an all-new cast. I've mentioned some of the cast members, just a few seconds ago. I'm not going to reveal many more of them because I think it's fun for you to see really who's in the film. But I will say that the cast is incredible. Once again, I think that there are a couple standout characters and a couple standout actors and actresses who I won't reveal. It'll be for you to figure out because it's very clear and apparent why certain actors and actresses do a much better job. Not a much better job, but have more to play with within the movie. And Daniel Craig, as always, is just amazing. I love the character of Benoit Blanc. I think that I love the way that he plays the character. He looks like he's having so much fun with the character, and he's just having a good time. It's really fun to see. I know that everyone's used to the very quiet and serious James Bond version of Daniel Craig, but I personally, I might even like Benoit Blanc more than his version of James Bond. That might be, oops, sorry, I just hit the mic. That might be more controversial. But again, I love the way that he plays the character. I really, really do. So, Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig is having a great time. Rian Johnson also directs this film expertly. It's a very different setting and it's a very different kind of mystery than Knives Out was, but it again has that same spirit of Knives Out, which is whimsical, fun, whodunit, but also it's keeping you on your toes constantly. There are things being revealed that make you see the entire film in a completely different light. Just as it was with Knives Out, but in a different way. And I think that by the time you sort of have a grasp, this is what makes these movies so fun, is that by the time you really have a grasp, you think you have a grasp of what's going on, something else changes, and your sense of scale and your sense of what's going on is really upended. And so I love that about this movie. Now, I will say that in my opinion, this movie is not as good as Knives Out, which is again very hard to do because I think personally Knives Out is one of the best movies made in the last few years. So to say that it's not not that it's not nearly as good, but it's not quite as good as Knives Out is no knock against Glass Onion. I think that once you see Glass Onion and see what it's going for, I think that it'll hit different people in different ways. Me personally, as I watched the film wrap up, I kind of went, yeah, I understand what this film is ultimately trying to say, and I think that it was effective in that regard. I think that Rian Johnson did exactly what he set out to do, but at the same time, I also think that it wasn't quite as strong as the sort of flourish and the ending of the original Knives Out, in my opinion. So, but that's just me. You might have a completely different opinion as well. Again, the cast is stellar. The mystery is really intriguing, and it invites you to figure out what happens, but it keeps you on your toes. And again, the sense of scale and the sense of whimsy and the sense of just inviting you on this journey. It's all there. It's all there and that's all you can ever want and expect from a whodunit murder mystery. So I can't say more. I know this is really, really vague of me, but it's a big recommendation. If you have Netflix, please check out Glass Onion. And then hopefully Rian Johnson will continue to make more of these because they're just so fun. Just bring in all the A-list or bring in all the talented Hollywood actors that you can surrounding Daniel Craig, and let's just keep making more of these as long as people want them, which is fantastic. All right. With that said, let's move on to Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, this is very fresh on my mind. I just saw Avatar: The Way of Water, so again, very, very fresh on my mind. But very excited to talk about it because I saw the first Avatar. I did not see it in theaters, so I didn't have that experience that everyone else had of, oh, this is mind-blowing CGI, and then this is one of the greatest movies visually ever made, all that kind of stuff. I did not have that experience. But I did enjoy the first Avatar. I saw it much later than its actual release date, and so the CGI didn't blow me away. I was also watching it on a much smaller screen, obviously, and all that kind of stuff. But again, the CGI just not, it's not as impressive now, which is fair because it came out 13 years ago. So the first Avatar, though I thought it had really interesting themes. I thought the story was a little cliche in a lot of parts, like the idea of a group of people attacking another group of people, and then one person falls in love with the other with the person of the other group, and then defects and joins the other group, and then they fight and all that kind of stuff. It's not the most original of story concepts. Let's be fair. Let's be frank. But again, I think it worked well because of the world building that James Cameron did with Pandora, and I think that he was very successful in setting out to make just this really immersive new world of Pandora. So in that regard, I think that it is very, very successful. The first Avatar, at least in my opinion. Now, the second Avatar film, obviously James Cameron has said he already shot, I believe, 3, maybe even 4. And at the very least, he's written 4 and 5. I do believe he shot 3 back to back with 2. I don't remember if he shot 4 as well, which is crazy. But again, the first Avatar is the highest grossing film of all time. It's almost made $3 billion. If not, it already has made $3 billion with all of its re-releases. This film has already made almost $1 billion by the time I'm recording this video. It will hit $1 billion very soon. These movies make money, These movies make money, but also these movies are expensive. And if I've heard correctly, the second Avatar movie cost $400 million to make. So, again, these movies make money, but they're also very expensive. And just cutting to the chase right away, this first portion will be non-spoiler, and then I'll talk about a couple spoiler things at the end of this segment. But just talking about non-spoiler first, you can tell where every single cent of that 400 million or whatever that number actually is, you can tell where it went because this film is gorgeous. This film is one of the best visual experiences that I've ever had in a theater. If not the single best. And I've seen Top Gun Maverick in the theaters a couple times. I saw 1917, I saw whatever else there is to say, of the past couple years of visual spectacle. But I mean, this is just leaps and bounds. I saw this film also in It wasn't IMAX, but it was like XD or something. It was one of the biggest theater screens I've ever seen, and I saw it in 3D, which I never see 3D, because 3D it just to me is doesn't do anything. But all the critics were saying if there is a film to see in 3D, it's this one. So I thought I'll give it a chance, and yeah, I mean, not every single frame of this film, needed the 3D. But again, I think that the 3D really popped a lot more, like a lot more than it did in any other film. So I'm really glad that I did get to see it in 3D as well. Again, the water sets are just incredible. They're beautiful to look at. The Na'vi, I mean, compared to 2009's Avatar, just look incredible. There are still a couple scenes where I kind of went, yeah, it looks a little video game-ish, but again, like for like the majority of this film, they look like real creatures, and that's crazy, because there's a lot of them. It's almost all blue people in this movie, and that's really a testament to James Cameron and the visual teams working on this film. And so I'm really happy about that. So again, I mean, if you watch this movie for no other reason, just for the visuals, it is a long film. It is 3 hours and 12 minutes, I think. So if you need to go to the bathroom, I don't think anyone will blame you, because it's 3 hours and 12 minutes. But if you watch this movie for no other reason than the visuals, I think that is a perfectly valid reason, because this film is a visual masterpiece. I imagine that this is sort of the what people were saying when they saw 2009's Avatar for the first time. I think that this kind of feeling of, wow, like, well, that is just incredible, I think is very similar to what we just saw. Now, to be fair, because the next Avatar will come out in 2024 and then 2025 and 2027, it's hard, because I'm going to transition now into not necessarily the negatives, although the more negative part of this review, but 2009's Avatar and 2022's Avatar: The Way of Water obviously were 13 years apart, and they had time to really perfect a lot of the visual things that they wanted to really go for here. And you can tell, right? You can tell the Na'vi look just so much more human and so much more realistic and photorealistic and all that kind of stuff between the 13 years. The problem is that now, because you film 2 and 3 back to back, and I'm going to assume, I could be wrong, but I'm 90% sure that I heard that. Anyways, because you're releasing these films so close together, I'm sure that Avatar 3's visuals are going to be incredible, and I'm sure that Avatar 4's visuals are going to be incredible, but it's not going to be the same leap as from Avatar 1 and 2. And the reason that I bring that up is because I think that the story for Avatar 2 is good, but it is only good enough. I think that if you see the story of Avatar 2, you're going to be able to find several weaknesses in the plot. If you look for them, you're going to see some generic tropes that are used in the second Avatar film. And really the story and the characters are not the strongest part of Avatar 2. I think that some of the characters are very compelling, and I think that there's an effort here to really develop some of the characters and their relationships. And I think that by the end of the film, you do care more about some of the characters that you may not have invested in before. But again, it's not really what this film was trying to do, at least I think, because the film is really just a visual vessel, right? It's a vehicle for the visual effects, I think. And I know that Cameron, probably wants to tell a really great story, and I'm sure he does, but I think that the story is about as good as the first movies, and I think that the first movie story is good, but again, it's just fun. It's a fun story that probably goes on for way too long. I think that you could have cut about 30 minutes off Avatar: The Way of Water, but fine, it's 3 hours and 10 minutes, and if you want it to be that long, then fine. But again, I think that you're not coming into Avatar 2 really for the characters or really for the story, which are, again, good enough. Good enough for the visual vessel that is Avatar: The Way of Water. I think that obviously you have returning characters like Jake Sully and Neytiri. Aside from that, I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to give anything away in case you haven't seen the trailers or anything like that, or you just don't want to know. But again, I think Cameron has this idea that he's making some sort of groundbreaking story, and while he is making a groundbreaking film in many in many senses of that phrase, I just don't see a lot of new in the characters that he's developing. I think that there are a lot of tropes that are used that are very tried and true. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm just, I'm left wondering that if you take the visuals aside, and for this film, the visuals were more than enough. But I'm thinking about Avatar 3, I'm thinking about Avatar 4, and I'm wondering, take the visuals out, what are you left with? And what you're left with, I think, in this film is just a good story that's very, very, very long. With some decent character development. It's nothing amazing, in my opinion. There's some good scenes. There are some very good scenes between the characters. And I think that the acting, especially Sam Worthington as Jake Sully, once again, is very good. But again, I think it's really the visuals that you're going to be left in awe of as you walk into the theater. You're returning to Pandora and seeing this whole other side of it with the water is truly incredible. So those are my thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water. Again, I would highly recommend seeing it. See it on a big screen, see it on as big of a screen as you can, and enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. Transitioning very quickly into some spoilers. This is just a very, very quick spoiler segment. I'm not going to talk about too much from the film. So if you haven't seen the film, if you have seen the film, I'll just talk about a couple quick points. And if you haven't seen the film, spoiler alert. In 3, 2, 1. I think that I think that the family element of this film is what it is banking on. Obviously, like the family is our fortress kind of thing. I think that I do care about the family. I do care about Jake Sully's family, but I just don't think I was invested as much as I think the film wanted me to be. And especially when the oldest son, is this Nateyam, I think is his name? I could totally be wrong about that. When he dies, I think that the film maybe it expected me to care a little bit more than I actually did, because that was really the one family member that wasn't given any development. So maybe the film really didn't want me to care about his death, and maybe it was really more just for the Sully family. That might very well be it. But again, I mean, the other supporting characters from the Water Village, I think, are fine. I think that bringing back Stephen Lang as the Colonel is a little questionable, because I just don't quite care that much about him. And looks like he's going to be the villain from what I read for the next 3 Avatar films. So great, I guess. And yeah, I mean, there's some things being set up here for the 3rd Avatar film, like with Kiri, Sigourney Weaver's character, one of the adopted daughter, who's born from Sigourney Weaver's Avatar. It's very confusing. Obviously, you have Stephen Lang's character being preserved, being kept alive, and then you also have that interesting subplot with mining the brain material from the big whale character, or the whale species, and de-aging and immortality. That might come into play, maybe. Again, when I'm looking at Avatar: The Way of Water, I'm thinking about the visuals. I'm thinking about the experience. I really, truthfully, I'd watch these films. I'd watch many more sequels just to see what James Cameron can do visually and push the boundaries. But I'm not going to watch these movies expecting groundbreaking stories and things like that. I think that this is a class of film on its own, and I think that that's a good thing. I'm not disparaging James Cameron in that way. I think that this is one of the best theater experiences I've had in quite a while. Obviously, Top Gun Maverick notwithstanding. And I think that it's well worth a watch. I'm excited for Avatar 3, not because of the characters necessarily, just because I know it's going to be an experience, and I think that's what theaters are for, so I'm very happy about that. All right, guys, with that being said, with those 3 reviews out of the way, we are going to get into my 2 rankings of the podcast. So just to wrap up 2022 and then to move into 2023, I have one ranking where I'm going to be ranking all of Phase 4 of the MCU. Of the MCU, and I know that this isn't necessarily 2022. I know this is 2021 and 2022, but I thought it'd be a nice way to just sort of wrap up Phase 4 and then kind of give my thoughts on all the projects going forward. So as we head into Phase 5, so this will include, I'm not officially going to include What If in there. I'll talk about it very briefly, but this isn't going to include all the shows and the movies and the television special presentations as well. So that'll be sort of a look back in the past couple of years. And then as we look forward into 2023, I'm going to give my top 10 most anticipated films of 2023. You might be asking why I'm not going to do a top 10 2022. That's simply because I haven't seen nearly as many films as I should. And to give a top 10 of 2022 is really just going to be giving the top blockbusters that came out this year, which you already know. You got your Doctor Stranges, you got your Thor: Love and Thunders. Obviously, I mean, they wouldn't be in the top 10 otherwise, but because I probably haven't seen more than 10 new films this year, again, not because I don't want to, but because I'm mainly covering blockbuster films, and also because of time. A top 10 of the previous year, maybe not the most constructive thing. But again, if you guys want to see that, maybe I'll do a separate thing where I do that as well. But right now, what we're going to be doing, so we'll do phase 4 ranking, and then we will be doing a top 10 most anticipated of 2023. All right, guys, let's get into it. Let's get into the ranking of phase 4. So we're going to be doing all 16 projects. 16 is crazy because I believe phase 3 had maybe 11, if I'm not mistaken. So 16 projects, that's crazy in the span of 2 years. And we're going to go from bottom to top, and I'll just give some quick thoughts on all of them as we go. All right. Before we start, I'm going to put What If here at the bottom. I don't count animated projects. I do have an entire list of all, I think, 39 MCU projects ranked. I do keep a ranking. I know a lot of people have given up at this point. I still keep my ranking just for fun. But I don't include the animated projects because they just don't seem like they're canon in the same way. I know multiverse and all that kind of stuff, but they just don't seem like they're canon in the same way. They do an entire separate presentation for the animated projects at their expos and stuff. So I think it's separate. So I do think the What If would be towards the bottom. I didn't quite enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I think there were some bad episodes. I think there were some good episodes. And I think overall it was just an interesting concept, but nothing really exciting for me. All right, coming in at number 16 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, I have listened to my fair share of other people's rankings of Phase 4 of the MCU, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier appears very highly on a lot of other people's rankings, and that's totally fine. You guys know I totally respect everyone's opinions. For me personally, I've only seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier once. To be fair, it was over a year and a half ago. Just didn't like it. I think there was a lot of things that it had going for it. Obviously, the commentary on race relations in America, and obviously how a black man can sort of fill in the shoes of a prototypically, let's be honest, a prototypically white role of Captain America was really interesting. I really liked it. I really liked what they did with Isaiah Bradley. I just think it got lost in all this stuff about Carly Morgenthau and Zemo doing something, and Val doing something, and John Walker doing something, and again, I think that the end result of Captain America now being Sam Wilson, I think was really cool. But I just, for whatever reason, and maybe I'll rewatch it again. I don't even think Bucky had that much to do in the show, to be quite honest with you. Perhaps I'm looking at it just too unfavorably because I just haven't seen it in such a long time. But I don't have that kind of fondness for the show that I do for some of the other ones, and I haven't seen a lot of the other ones in a while, but I had a lot of problems with the show, so I'll put it at number 16 for now. Obviously can change my mind, but yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier, number 16. Coming in number 15 is She-Hulk Attorney at Law. The only reason that this is a little bit higher than Falcon and Winter Soldier is because I did enjoy more individual episodes of She-Hulk, and I'm a little bit more of a sucker for this whole sitcom kind of vibe. I do think that it lends itself a little bit better to my sensibilities. So I think that the sort of 30-minute episodes, while I didn't enjoy every single one of them, I think that a lot of them were at least entertaining enough. And then obviously you had the Daredevil episode, which I loved. The finale I thought was a big swing, and I thought that even if not all of it worked in the context of the show, I thought that it was actually, was clever enough, and I think that I like Tatiana Maslany enough that I will put She-Hulk Attorney at Law at number 15. Coming in at number 14 is Loki, another show that I'm sure a lot of people will rank much higher than I do. And for me, I did rewatch Loki fairly recently, actually. I rewatched it, I want to say maybe a few months ago, and I have pretty much the exact same feeling as I did when I first saw the show, and that is that half of it is really good, and half of it is really bad. So I think that the first 2 episodes of Loki were probably some of the best episodes of Disney Plus Marvel that they've done. I think episode 3 is quite bad. I think episode 4 is good, and I think that episode 5 is okay, and I think episode 6 is not great at all. I'm one of those people who don't like He Who Remains. From what I've seen from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it looks like that Kang the Conqueror is a lot better. But He Who Remains, I just did not like the performance at all, and I think that this show really kind of lost its identity halfway through. And then I think that it was setting up too much for season 2. So here's hoping that season 2 is a lot more consistent, I hope, because I feel like the ending of this show is really just setting up another season, and I'm not a big fan of when shows do that. So Loki at number 14. Number 13 is his brother Thor in Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor: Love and Thunder is a film that I enjoy. I've seen it twice. I think that it is entertaining. I think that it is fun. I don't think it's particularly funny, unlike Ragnarok, which I do think is very funny. And I don't think it has that emotion, which I think that Ragnarok, well, I don't think Ragnarok has too much emotion. I think it tries, but I don't think it really succeeds. But let's be honest. I think that when Jane dies, I thought I was going to feel more, and I just didn't. So you kind of pair that all together with just kind of a goofy, like silly romp. And yeah, I don't really love the film. I think that it's probably one of Marvel's weaker efforts. So 13, Thor: Love and Thunder. Coming in at number 12 is Black Widow. Now, Black Widow is a film that is sort of forgotten about nowadays because it was the first film of Phase 4. It was supposed to come out, the first of Phase 4. It was sort of, basically supposed to come out like Civil War era. And it probably should have. But again, it came out when it did, and I think that probably hurt it, but I think that Black Widow is an incredibly just solid film. I don't think that there's a lot spectacular about it. I think that Alexei, David Harbour's Alexei is great. I think Florence Pugh's Yelena is obviously awesome. The rest of the film is just fine. I think Scarlett Johansson gives a good performance as always as Natasha. But again, this is a film that really should have come out in 2017, and that's 2016. And you know what? That's not its fault, but also it is. I can't help but think about that as I think about this film. So it was an incredibly solid spy film. Just really nothing that really stood out about it in that regard. Coming in at number 11 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, a film that I think is entertaining, but I also think that is incredibly fluffy and light compared to what its source material and what its subject material is. I think that when you're talking about the Multiverse of Madness, that the film is this light and kind of goofy is odd. I think that Wanda being the villain, that's one thing that I'm totally fine with. I'm going to defend. I think that it makes perfect sense. Again, I know a lot of people don't agree with me, then that's fine. So that's not what I have a problem with. I just have a problem with the fact that when I think about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it just feels incredibly inconsequential. And that's, I don't know. It's entertaining enough. That's why it's this high on the list. But again, I don't quite see what the point of it all was. And I think that that's really its biggest problem. So number 10 is Hawkeye. Hawkeye is a show, much like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that, it's not that I don't, it's not that I'm saying, what's the point of this show? I think that there is a point to the show. I just think that there are some interesting decisions, obviously, with Kingpin and with the Tracksuit Mafia, with Echo as well, and then obviously with Jack Duquesne. I think Jack Duquesne is a weird character in the show, but for the most part, Haley Steinfeld is really charming as Kate Bishop, and Jeremy Renner is great again as Clint Barton. It felt like it could have been more, but also it was just sort of a fun Christmassy kind of show, and for that, I think that it did basically what it had to do. It fulfilled its basic requirement. I think that it was fun enough, that I was happy with it. So number 10 is Hawkeye. Number 9 is Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a show that had incredible potential. Again, much like Loki, its first 2 episodes were outstanding. Its 5th episode was outstanding. I think its 3rd and 4th episodes were quite good. Maybe not quite good, but good. And I think that the finale kind of was a little bit confusing with the giant crocodile and all that kind of stuff. But what really prevents Moon Knight from being closer to the top is that it kind of gets lost in itself. It kind of gets lost in the whole psychiatrist office with Dr. Harrow. Like, what is that even? It gets lost in the Duat, I believe, the Egyptian afterlife. And it's hard because this show, no pun intended, in relation to Stephen and Mark, but it feels like this show doesn't have an identity. at certain points, and it's a shame because this show is just probably some of the strongest elements of any of the MCU properties at all. I think Oscar Isaac gives one of the best performances of any MCU property ever. I think that the subject material is really quite compelling, and it's just a shame that this show really couldn't have been more than what it was. So number 9 is Moon Knight. Number 8 is Miss Marvel. I think that Miss Marvel, again, you're going to see a pattern here, suffers from a lot of the same things that a lot of these Disney Plus shows suffer from, and that is 4 really good episodes. Episodes 1 through 3, outstanding. Episode 6, very good. Episodes 4 and 5, quite bad, in my opinion. And that's a bummer because I think that the potential of this show is just incredible, and I hope that I can't wait to see the family again in the Marvels. I really hope Miss Marvel gets to season 2 because I think Iman Vellani crushes it, and so I think that again a lot of missed opportunities here to just make a really consistently good show, but episodes 4 and 5 are just belonged in a different show altogether, and we're just not nearly as good, which is really a shame. Coming in at number 7 is Werewolf by Night. I think that Werewolf by Night proved that the special presentation format can work incredibly well. And I think that Michael Giacchino, the director and the composer of many MCU films, as well as the composer of Werewolf by Night, proved that he can direct very, very well. The style of black and white is really great for the ambiance. I think that Man-Thing is really great. Obviously, Jack as the werewolf is great. And I think that for what it is, as just sort of a side little thing in the MCU that will probably be expanded upon a little bit more later. Werewolf by Night, really, really great for its 50-minute runtime. Coming in at number 6, another controversial one, Eternals. I stand by the fact that I think Eternals is one of the better MCU movies ever made. I understand that is controversial, but I do still love Eternals. I think that the story it was trying to tell about humanity and about these Eternals and the Celestials, and I'm just hoping really that it will connect to the MCU a little bit more. I have no idea what's going on with the Eternals and all that kind of stuff, so I'm hoping that it'll be a part of the MCU going forward. But again, even if it's just the Eternals, I still think it's just an incredibly strong film. I think Icarus is a good villain. And I think the conflict that the Eternals have with, like sacrificing and the moral dilemmas and all that kind of stuff is great. Really, really happy with this film. I know a lot of other people aren't. That's totally fine. Coming in at number 5 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I talked about it a little bit ago in the podcast, so I won't really talk that much more about it. Just to say that I think it's a very, very good film. It deals with grief in a way that I think is very poignant and strong, and I'm really happy that the film was as strong as it was, just given all the circumstances. So Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Now, coming in at number 4, this shocked me. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is one of the single best just pieces of television that I've ever seen. It is warm. It is funny. It is, entertaining. It is everything that you want it to be. Especially with the ending. Just spoiler alert, but with the Mantis and Star-Lord scene, it's just really, really touching. Surprisingly, and just it captured the spirit of Christmas, I think, better than a lot of other things ever did. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, I loved it. I'll hopefully talk about it a little bit more in another video, but really blown away by how good this was. Really makes me excited for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Coming in at number 3 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is a film that I think truly exceeded my expectations and was just incredibly solid in almost every aspect, and the action was really outstanding on the bus. The bus fight, obviously, and then the choreography of the Ten Rings are just an incredible visual tool in terms of combat. I think that Simu Liu gave a great performance as Shang-Chi. You had obviously one of the best MCU villains, I think, in Wenwu. The story is compelling. The cast is compelling. I think that this is one of the better efforts from Marvel that we've ever seen. Coming in at number 2 is WandaVision. WandaVision started off Phase 4, and I think that it set the bar incredibly high. It's still, I think, by far and away the best Disney Plus show that they've done from beginning to end. I know there are some problems with WandaVision. I acknowledge it, but the ending is a little bit lackluster. But again, when you go from beginning to end. You just track this story of grief and despair and loss and love and mourning. It's beautiful. And also I love sitcoms as well. So, how could I say no to WandaVision? And obviously coming in at number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. This is still probably the best overall film in Phase 4, best film or show in Phase 4. Not just because of the extra Spider-Man, obviously. I maintain that you take that out of the film and it still works incredibly well. It carries the legacy of Spider-Man and his responsibility for others. The death of Aunt May is one of the most powerful scenes in the MCU, I think. The way that Tom Holland plays that, and I think that everything about this film, it works, maybe minus a couple things, like some of the villains don't work as well as the other ones, but again, I'm really not going to complain about that, given how incredible this film is. So that is my ranking of all the Phase 4 projects, and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. I'd love to know. Please send me your own rankings in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think as well. All right, guys, let's really quickly go through my top 10 most anticipated 2023. I know we're almost hitting the hour mark of the podcast, so I won't go too in depth on any of these, but again, we'll just be talking about this for a little bit. So, top 10 anticipated 2023. This is probably the most subjective list you'll ever hear from me. I'm not really going to give real logical reasons for a lot of these. Just what I'm excited for. And you're going to see some funny picks and funny places, but again, it's just how I'm feeling. Obviously, we all know that movies like Knives Out, for example, were not on my list in 2019, and lo and behold, it probably is one or two of my favorite movies of the year. So, just knowing that, probably some of my favorite films of 2023 will not be on this list. Like Top Gun Maverick was definitely not on my list of 2022, one of my favorite films of the year. So without further ado, let's get into it. And coming in the, before I get into the top 10, the sort of questionable place is The Flash. And the only reason I want to talk about The Flash is that because if there were no extenuating circumstances surrounding the movie, I think it would definitely be in the top 10. I've gone on record to say I will not be seeing the movie in theaters. For now, I'm sticking by that, although, again, Ezra Miller has not done anything as of late, and I'm still waiting to see how this all plays out. 6 months until the film comes out, I am at liberty to change my mind if I feel that the situation is appropriate, but as of right now, I'm not going to be seeing the movie in theaters. So again, I would put The Flash on here, but it's kind of a complicated situation. So honorable/dishonorable mention to The Flash. Coming in at number 10 is The Marvels. I'm not over the moon about The Marvels, but I think that Miss Marvel alone is probably going to make this movie get on the list. But again, it's an MCU movie. I think that it has potential. And there were a lot of other films on the list that are in like 11 through 20, that I just thought, I'm probably not as excited about them as The Marvels, but it's not the most ringing endorsement of this film, but I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what Nia DaCosta can do. Coming in at number 9 is Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I really like the first Shazam film. I think that this one looks great. I'm excited to see Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, and obviously Rachel Zegler as well. Loved her in West Side Story. So again, just very excited to see what this film is going to be, and if Zachary Levi is gonna stick around with the new DC hierarchy. Who knows? But yeah, excited nonetheless. Coming in at number 8 is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Recently, saw the Indiana Jones film, so they're fresh in my mind. And yeah, I mean, I think that coming off of Crystal Skull, you might be a little bit nervous, but I think that with James Mangold, he really just doesn't miss. Ford v Ferrari, Logan, obviously. So I think that we just kind of have to take it for what it is and hope that Harrison Ford gives a great performance. It seems like he's really excited about it, and I am too. Coming in at number 7, much lower probably than on a lot of people's list, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. You can watch my review or my rewatch review of Into the Spider-Verse on this channel. I wasn't the biggest fan of the film, although I really quite like it. And I have to say the same about this film. I think that it looks great. I'm not going to be the first person in line to see it. I'll see it as soon as I can on opening weekend, obviously. But again, I think that as with most things Spider-Verse, I'm not probably not the number one fan. I don't think it's nearly the best Spider-Man film ever made, like a lot of people are saying. But still, I really enjoyed the first one. Can't wait to see what they do in the next one. Coming in at number 6 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The trailer didn't quite do it for me. I think that the goofy animal head Earth neighborhood scene at the very beginning was a little off-putting. But again, it looks emotional. James Gunn has promised emotional, and I think that if you kind of get that Guardians humor with that emotion that James Gunn is promising, then I think that it'll be a great, really great send off for the Guardians. Coming in at number 5 is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Every year that there's a Mission Impossible movie, you just got to put it on the list because, I mean, Tom Cruise is crazy, and what else is he going to do? I should really never doubt the man. He, flies fighter jets in Top Gun Maverick, and he's motorcycling off cliffs in Mission Impossible. Enough said, I feel like. Coming in at number 4, this one's going to surprise a lot of you, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I was so skeptical of this at first, but after seeing the trailers, I am much more on board with it. I don't really care about Chris Pratt's voice, to be quite honest. I just don't think there's going to be a voice that really pleases anybody, and I think that his voice is fine. And I grew up pretty much exclusively on Mario games, Nintendo games, and just to see how faithful they've been in the animation and the world that they're building with the Super Mario Bros. Levels, Super Mario Galaxy, Mario Kart, all that kind of stuff, it just makes me so excited to see what they can do. So I might be surprised to see it this high on the list, but hey, there you go. And again, I mean, this all might come toppling down, right? Like one year, whatever year the Tom and Jerry movie came out, like 2020, it was very high in my top 10 because I grew up watching Tom and Jerry, but we all know how that turned out. The movie wasn't great at all. So again, this movie might be really bad, but still very much excited for it. Number 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Probably looks the best to me out of any of the MCU movies this year. Quite excited to see what's going on. Obviously in the quantum realm, just, all the stuff with Kang the Conqueror, it should be very exciting. Obviously, I've been on record as saying I love Paul Rudd, one of my favorite actors, one of my favorite characters in the MCU is Scott Lang. I'm very excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Coming in at number 2 is Dune Part 2. I think that the first movie is a great first half of a movie, and now I'm really excited to see the conclusion of that film. Because again, I really consider Dune Part 1 just to be part 1 of a bigger movie. And so I'm really excited to see how they're going to wrap everything up because I really enjoyed Dune Part 1. But again, not a complete movie in my eyes. So Dune Part 2 should hopefully complete that out. And coming in at number 1, might surprise you guys, is Oppenheimer. I'm not always the hugest fan of Christopher Nolan's films. I think that I really like almost every one of them, but that is to say that he's not my favorite director of all time. But I think that this is just the right combination of things that makes me so excited for a film. It may be surprising to you guys, but I just think the trailer looks incredible. I think that the material is so rich, the moral dilemmas of the bomb, and sort of digging into that as well. The cast is incredible. Cillian Murphy, I think Robert Downey Jr. is in the film, Emily Blunt, just so many other amazing actors in the movie. And I don't know. It might just be the trailer that really got me excited, but Oppenheimer is probably one of my most anticipated films of 2023. Again, I mean, I struggled, like 1, 2, and 3 are probably interchangeable. I could probably put Ant-Man up there. I could probably put Dune Part 2 up there. But Oppenheimer, for now, will be my most anticipated of 2023. And guys, that'll do it for the Access Blockbusters pod today. Thank you guys so much for listening. It really does mean a lot. I know I've been sort of away, MIA, for a while. I apologize. I don't want it to be this way all the time. But again, I just, things get in the way. But I'm just so happy to have been able to catch up with you guys for this past hour and just really talk about a lot of really awesome things. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe to the Access Blockbusters channel. Please make sure to give this video a like, comment down below with your rankings as well. They'll be coming out as individual clips as the days go on, as we head into the new year. And guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of 2022 and a fantastic start to 2023. I can't wait to see what we got going on in store for us as the new year comes along. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys in the next one.